As you can see, Hamid Babaali joins me for the second time. He's currently in his home of America in California. And this time we're going to be talking about his updated career because there's so much that's happened in the last year that we haven't been on the podcast with him for. So, Hamid, I welcome you to the show. And how are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Yeah, it's been a roller coaster of a 2024 so far. And I mean, since we last spoke, man, like there has been just, endless ups and downs that I'm really, really excited to share with you.
Absolutely. And also, let me just say how good your social media is because obviously you document your journey so well. And it goes without saying 100% that people should definitely go ahead, follow you, and support your channel because, well, I'm sure you're going to talk about it in this because obviously you've got to balance the life of being a content creator while also being a professional football player. And there's so much to get through. And also, let me just add, we're now sponsored by VIP Framing, framing from everything from shirts, from football lovers. You can get everything framed from VIP Framing. So make sure you go and check them out as well. So, Hamid, let's go and start off then. Just we wanted to sum up your early footballing days up until late 2023. So why don't you go ahead and talk to us about your early upbringing in football, who got you involved into it, and what was it like growing up?
So I've always been like casually involved when I was a kid, being from a Brazilian background. I always, whenever I'd be in Brazil, I'd be playing on the streets and, with my cousins and stuff like that. I got first, I got first involved with it with organized football when my parents put me into like a recreational league here at a field nearby my house, at a pitch nearby my house. And it was okay. Like I didn't love it until I scored a goal. Then I loved it. That was the feeling that was like, okay, that's what I need to chase. Then I didn't play for a while. Again, just, kind of unorganized football. And then I really got back into it when I was around like 12, 13, when I joined this club that was run by a Brazilian guy. And that's when I was taught the fundamentals, when I was taught like the creativity of the game. And like, I was taught to express myself. So that was more, that was where I really fell in love with it. And it also allowed me, more of I fit in more, like I made more friends. I was having a hard time with getting along with people at my school, for example. That helped me a lot. I had something in common with people all of a sudden. And then I just kept getting better and better and better and better until I was, Sueño MLS finalist in 2015. I joined a club team. Then I had, trained with academy clubs, and then I played college soccer, Division 1 college, for 2 years. And then from there, I went to Brazil to join my very first professional club. And then I went to Europe, started out in Latvia, third division, got transferred to the second division. And then COVID hit, unfortunately. But I ended up managing to find my way to Croatia, where I played at Qabila, which was a really cool experience. Then from there, I came back to the US, played UPSL for a season, got promoted, qualified for the US Open Cup. I actually scored the game winner to get us qualified to the US Open Cup. So that moment is like etched in history. If you search up like San Fernando Valley FC Open Cup, it's just a picture of me celebrating a goal. It's really cool. And then I went back to Latvia to play for Marupe, which was again an interesting turn of events. We almost got promoted. We barely missed out on promotion that year. And then I went back to Brazil, played for Fluminense de Feira, mixed with the first team in under 23s. And then 2024, quite a lot has happened too.
Well, I feel like so much has happened in this year alone that it could basically make a career story out of what's happened in this year
Yeah,
alone.
genuinely.
So let's just start off just before 2024. So when you were at Fluminense, I'm sure people are going to ask, is it affiliated with the big Fluminense club that we know in Brazil?
No, so it's a little bit complicated because there's obviously football in Brazil started when the British came to Sao Paulo, right, and Rio de Janeiro, and introduced football to the Brazilian people and created teams like Corinthians, Botafogo, Flamengo, Fluminense. And like, so fan bases started, really building up, and people from the Northeast, from the North, from other states that, where football was a little bit less developed at that time, they would create their own clubs and they would put those names. So it would be because it's like, oh, Fluminense supporters in Feira de Santana, Bahia, for example, they wanted to create their own club, so they just called it Fluminense of that city, right? And they would put a very similar logo. They would put, the same club colors. It's almost like how in Gibraltar there's like Manchester 62, and they're affiliated with, like, they're not affiliated, but they're inspired by Manchester United, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's the same vibe. It's the same exact vibe. But it's the second biggest Fluminense in the country based on the history of the team.
Well, Gibraltar's definitely a funny one because I know I've interviewed a few people from over there, and it's definitely a crazy one. I think there's 12 teams in the division, or 11. They all play in the same stadium: Manchester 62, Lincoln,
Yeah.
Craig. And there's so many teams, and they're all professional, which is just crazy knowing how small Gibraltar is. So when you were at Fluminense, then how did that come to an end? Did the contract expire because you were only there for 1 year? And how would you sum up your time when you were there?
Well, it was a little bit complicated because at first I went there only just to like kind of train because I was unsure whether I was going to stay in Brazil. I was just visiting at the time. But yeah, so I played a little bit with the first team, and then the under-23 started, and I was a little bit like, they were a little bit unsure about me in the beginning because like I had come from a long time of like not having been training, so I wasn't like my sharpest. So they put me with the under-23s, and that's where I got my fitness. And the coaches there loved me, and like the directors were like, okay, we can see his talent now, so let's get a contract going for him. So we were like talking about contract details, and the question of my international transfer came up, the ITC, right? And so we started talking about that. However, the season abruptly came to an end. So very, very abruptly, we got eliminated from any chance of promotion. And so the under-23s were actually going to go up to the first team to play a different tournament called it's called like the Governor's Cup. And it's worth a place in the Brazilian Cup. And basically we were training to become like to go up to the first team because of like cost reasons and stuff like that. It was just more and they just wanted our under-23s basically to get like a look with scouts and stuff like that. We were preparing for that. However, I think like 1 week out, like for the tournament to start, the Bahia Football Federation just canceled it. They just canceled it. So basically, all of my talks with Fluminense, like, with getting the transfer done and all of that, just kind of like, they kind of just went to a halt. It just stopped. And then Fluminense just closed its doors altogether. The reason that happened was because they had just been bought out by a really big, company, basically. In Brazil, we call it a SAF, so an SAF. So now if you look at the biggest clubs in Brazil right now, they're all SAF. And it's basically I believe the way to explain it is sort of like how Manchester United has like stocks, for example, that you can buy on the New York Stock Exchange. It's a similar kind of a thing where you buy like a percentage of a club. And so that's what happened. And this company that bought Fluminense out closed everything, fired everyone, and just completely started from zero. So they closed down the training center, completely renovated it to the point where it's so beautiful now. It is like a top level training center now. They completely renovated the stadium. Our stadium had around 30,000 people capacity, and they just they repainted it. They just made it way, way better. And they just injected tons of money into the club. But with that came a complete change in staff. They completely took down like all the youth clubs, like all the youth system, to rebuild it up the way they wanted to do it. So basically everybody that was there in 2023 just kind of got pushed aside, unfortunately.
That's definitely not the way to run any sort of football club. And you mentioned Manchester United. They're doing something pretty similar, but I think with Manchester United, they probably don't have an idea. Maybe this club did. I mean, are they doing successfully now?
Oh, that's the thing. I personally, like my personal opinion about this is that they actually did a great job. Okay. So, I mean, yes, because things were not good when I was there at Fluminense, because the money was all right, but the training center was beaten down. The morale at the club was very low. The fans weren't on board anymore. They just weren't supporting us so much. The city wasn't on our side. And then this happened, and the fact that they just kind of cleaned house was actually a really positive thing to the fans, because the fans didn't like who was in charge. They didn't like, all the things that were going wrong. And they brought people that were extremely, extremely competent professionals. And they brought in a really great coach. They brought in really good players, but they narrowly missed out on promotion this last year. But everything looked infinitely better, infinitely better. And so I have to say hats off to the owners. I met the new owners because I was playing for the rival team. So I met them. They were always cordial. They don't just support their own club, but they actually support football in general around the city. So they're looking to grow everything around the city. So it's like a social project as well, which is an amazing thing. So I think that they're doing everything right, in my opinion.
So then, in 2024, your first club that you signed for was Feirense BA, and
Yes.
so much happened in that club, and we're going to go through
Oh
that
my
now.
God.
So when you initially signed for the club,
Hmm.
what was your expectations of it? What were they putting on the table? Because as you documented so well, what may come out people's mouths may not be necessarily what they provide in the end.
Oh yeah. So with Feirense, so what happened was, the way I got recruited to them was, I was living at that condo in Brazil that I was living, and I would just train at the condo because I didn't want to go out, to find a pitch, and the pitches are dirt, for the most part, and it's not the best situation. So I would just there was a little grass, area there with nice grass. So I just take my football and my boots and stuff, and I would just go train there. Like, there was a wall. I'd do some wall passing. I'd do some drills, and people that were in their cars would like pass by and see me. And there were a couple of kids at the condo, and their uncle was the vice president at this club. And they were like, "Hey, this guy's always training. He's really good. You should go check him out." So this guy came to the condo one day to watch me train. And I didn't know until the kids came up to me, called me to go to their house. And I met this guy, Jefferson, and he was like, "Hey, like, I heard a lot of good things about you. I saw you at Fluminense last year. Would you want to play for Feirense? I'm running the club. We're getting the club back up, right? So we want some good players like you." And I said, "Yeah, like, just let me know when, you guys are in preseason, and I'll definitely take part in it." He said, "Well, I want to see you now." So what I did was, I ended up training with the youth team, like the under 20s and stuff like that, just to get some fitness, to meet the coaches, some of the coaching staff that was there. And the conditions weren't great at that point, but I loved the people, right? The coaches were great, that he had. I really liked them. The players were humble, and they were talented, and they were hungry to, make it. So I thought, this is all great. It's not the best of situations, but at least I can, build off of this. It's going to be really good for me. When preseason starts is when things started to go wrong. So like, when the first team came in, basically, Jefferson was like, "Okay, these are your contract terms. Like, it's just gonna be for the season. We're gonna be paying. We can't pay a lot, right? Like, we can't give too much money. But here's what's on the table. We're gonna take care of your international transfer as well, because that hadn't been taken care of the last year, right? So he said, we're gonna take care of that, and there we go. Like, you'll be playing for us." And I said, "That sounds good. I trust you," because I had already built a rapport with him for quite a while. And so, my guard was completely down, and I signed the contract.
Was that a regret to sign that contract, knowing what happened in the end?
Absolutely not. No, I don't regret it, because I met some amazing people, and it was a great experience. I met some insanely good players as well. I mean, Luan Freitas, for example, he was our starting center mid. He played for Bahia, like the big club Bahia. He played for them his whole life. He had just gotten let go of the under-20s because Citigroup came in and bought the club. And when Citigroup came in, they just kicked the under-20 guys out of the first team. He was training with the first team at that point. So he came to us because he was from our city. And he was such a, my God, I don't even know who to compare him to. He was such a great player. Like, he wouldn't lose the ball. He had the craziest vision, and he was so humble, right? He was one of the humblest guys. And so, like, and there were a lot of nice stories, right? Like my friend Bruno Rica, he was 31 and he had his first professional contract. And he killed it that season. He did so well. So I don't regret it in that aspect because, you know, despite everything that happened to me, I met some amazing people there. So, and like it or not, I'm now recognized in that city as having played for them. So people know me for that. And that is kind of what the goal was. It was, you know, to build my image in a way, to build my CV. That's exactly what happened. So despite all of the things that did happen, in a way, it was mission accomplished as well.
Well, we're going to go on and talk about what happened after this, because obviously there's two sides to every single story. However, as I
Yes.
mentioned at the start, VIP Framing are sponsoring the show, and they always want to ask footballers a question. So, this is going back to idols and things like that. If you had to pick one player, football player, dead or alive, to have framed up on your wall in terms of their shirt, boots, gloves, whatever it may be, what player would it be and why?
Pele.
Pele.
Pele or Hildo Menezes.
And that would be
So
because...
So Pele, because he's my reason that he's like one of the main reasons I fell in love with the game. I would watch his videos, believe it or not. I'd watch his videos, and God, I mean, everything that you see a modern footballer do, he invented it. He created it. You can, like, it's incredible. It's as if he's playing in 2024, but in 1958 or in 1963, right? And people nowadays don't really understand just how good he was. And that's what I want to be. I want to be that kind of a player where it's like you didn't realize how good he was until like he's gone, really. And Hildu, that's a bit more of a niche one. He played with Pele at Santos and then at the New York Cosmos. And I would want his shirt because I actually knew him personally. He was a good friend of mine. He was a mentor of mine here in LA, and he passed away a couple of years back. And actually, the club he started with, Botafogo, they just won the Libertadores and the Brazilian Championship. So I think it would be beautiful to have, you know, like a shirt of his, like maybe 1966 World Cup when he scored against Portugal. You know, I'd love to have one of those shirts. Like, I think that would be it'd be a huge honor for me because he was a close, dear friend to me.
Well, thank you very much to VIP Framing for sponsoring this. Going to Brazil, actually, because Brazil is such an interesting place, and I always try and tune into TalkSport, which is obviously our big sport radio station in here in the
Yeah.
UK. And it really upsets me that they don't talk about this enough. So they have this one show on TalkSport where they constantly talk about the niche league. And Brazil is always one. They have a South American footballing expert, which Brazil, Paraguay,
Okay.
all these brilliant countries. And
Yes.
Botafogo got mentioned the other week, and I'm loving to hear about their winning success and things like that. And it's so good to hear. And I love hearing about the niche leagues. And obviously, it comes back to the show and me talking to the footballers like yourself that have played in all these cool, amazing countries. Such an
Yeah.
inspiration to us all. So with Fluminense, then, talk to us about what happened behind the scenes, which you documented on your channel, because we're going to go and talk about the content stuff later. But I heard, I mean, you told me that there was racism, there was lack of playing time, there was so much players, coaches turning up late training. Is that right? Because obviously you
Yeah.
sort of had the European mindset to turn up a bit early, and everyone else was no one was to be seen. So what happened?
Yeah. So to me, to get there early is to get there on time, and to show up on time is late. That's my mentality, you know. And I literally I just can't do on time, especially in a football sense. It makes me feel like I'm rushed and I can't relax. I can't go to training and do what I want to do, you know. And I want to get my routine, my prehab, my stretching, whatever I need to do. I want to get it done beforehand, basically. So with what happened behind the scenes, got so much. So first things first, the club did not do my international transfer correctly. So the Brazilian Football Federation actually blocked it from happening. They used a third party, which is against the rules, to do it because they had never done it before. They didn't know what the process was. And so that's basically what happened. Because of that, I wasn't allowed to play. It wasn't like a lack of playing time or anything, but it was just I was not allowed to play in any official games. I played in friendlies. I played in all the friendlies, and I actually played pretty well, which is why people ended up recognizing me from those friendlies. However, with the bureaucratic problems that were going on, that's what happened. And it didn't only happen with me, it happened with two other players. Actually, one of the players was Anderson Talisca's younger brother. So Talisca, who plays with Cristiano Ronaldo at Al Nassr, his younger brother was my teammate, and he was in the same boat as me in terms of, your transfer can't get done. And so we both only played in friendlies, unfortunately, and he was a great player. And actually, Anderson Talisca actually came to our club to try and like help resolve the situation, but it ended up just not happening. Another thing that happened behind the scenes was I didn't get paid. I didn't get paid anything. So everything that was in my contract just didn't happen. It was really tough because I would have these tough conversations with Jefferson, and he would just like there were just excuses being made all the time. Like, oh, lack of sponsorship, the sponsorship money hasn't come in, oh, this and that and this and that. But I knew that other players were getting their salaries at that point, you know. So it was very, very frustrating for me. Another thing was the head coach at the time was he was trying to find ways to get me to leave so that he could bring in more of his players. And that, included just like kind of ignoring me, just the very small things that end up amounting to a lot. He was trying to do that. And one day in a friendly, I was playing as a left back because that was one thing that he would do to me. He would play me as a left back, even though I'm a striker, and I was like, you know what? I don't care. I'll play as a left back and I'll play better than your left back. So I would go, and that game, I got a goal and an assist as a left back. And I went up to him afterwards and I asked him, hey, coach, like, with all due respect, but how come you're playing me at left back? And he said, because I don't need you at striker. I don't want you here at striker. Like, I just don't want you here. And that day I told him, I was like, you're not going to get me to leave. I'm going to stay until the end. All these guys might quit for whatever reason. And most of them did, actually. Most of them abandoned the team before the final game day. I told him, I'm not going to leave. You're not going to get me to leave. Like, this thing that you're doing, it's not going to work. It's just not. I've been to so many places. I've seen so many things that this is not going to affect me. I'm going to become, if I have to become the best left back on this team, I will. That's just how it's going to happen. And you will be forced to look at me. You will not be able to ignore me. It got to the point where the assistant coaches came up to me after these friendlies and was like, okay, if your international, like if your ITC was resolved, he'd be forced to play you right now because everybody can see that you're performing. Everybody could see it. Even we had a new assistant coach that came in named Alisson. And he had played in Turkey for most of his career. And he was saying, like, yeah, the way you've performed in training, the way you performed in games, like, you would have to play. There's no way. So, yeah, that was one of the things that happened. And then the biggest thing for me, unfortunately, was the Islamophobia. So the second I got there to preseason, where all the pros came in, I got a lot of because I'm a Muslim. I pray 5 times a day, and the time for me to pray was right before training, one of the prayer times. So I would pray and then I would step onto the pitch, right? And most of these guys would call me slick names. You know, my name's Hamid, but they would call me Muhammad, which is not the biggest, it's not an insult, but like, it's like, come on, have the common courtesy to say my name. Even the coach, even the head coach was doing that and found it funny. So like, that's a bit disrespectful on the very first day of preseason. Not only that, but people started, you know, saying more extreme things like ISIS and, you know, you're a terrorist, you're a part of ISIS, you're a part of this, you're a part of that. And they would say it like openly in front of coaching staff, in front of the medical staff, in front of the president, the owner of the club, in front of the vice president, Jefferson. It got to a point where there was one friendly, and we were like having water, and one of my teammates was like, "Damn, you're such a terrorist," or something like that, and I got mad, and I flipped out on him. And I was like, you know, like, how dare you say something about like that about me? I can't believe you would say something like that. Stop. Why are you disrespecting me in this way? I never disrespect you. I don't insult you. I don't talk bad about you. I only help you. So why are you saying these things about me? So I flipped out and I walked away, right? I walked away. Training was done anyway. So I was like, I'm just going to get out of here and not engage with this kind of behavior. And Jefferson came up to me and was like, "Why are you yelling at people?" And I said, "You saw exactly what happened. He called me a terrorist in front of everybody." And then he was like, "Yeah, but it's your fault." And I said, "How is this my fault?" And Jefferson went and he said, "Because you're the Muslim and you're letting it affect you. You're the one that's like not ignoring it." But how does that make any sense, Jamie? How would that, you know, that's like saying it's Vinicius Junior's fault for getting bananas thrown at him or for getting racist chants from Valencia fans. It's his fault. It's his fault for being of African origin. It's his fault for being black. You're born the way you are. I was born with Middle Eastern, you know, with a half Middle Eastern. I am a Muslim by faith. You know, I didn't insult anyone's faith ever. I didn't insult anybody by their race. I didn't insult anyone, period, because that's just not professional. So the fact that I was receiving that treatment and then I myself got blamed for it was something that I just couldn't, like, I couldn't handle that. And yeah, like I had to see, you know, a therapist. I had to, you know, do a lot of things just to kind of move past that situation, which I haven't really fully moved past. But you know, that was something that I really, really, unfortunately, that really tainted my experience at Feirense, because that was the experience I was looking for. You know, in Brazil, I wanted to play for a big club like Feirense. They were historically like a big club in Bahia. So that was something I really dreamed of doing. And to have that whole experience happen the way it did with all that stuff behind the scenes, it just kind of like shatters that dream.
Well, I mean, I can only apologise from hearing that. To be honest, there's definitely something that I think definitely for a lot of people in Brazil who've played in Brazil, and obviously you've documented it very well. It is pretty common to hear these kind of stories. You mentioned Vinicius, you mentioned these sorts of players in Europe. It blows my mind. I know that there's some problems in Eastern Europe. However, in the majority of Europe, there's not really too many problems. A bit of a stereotype. However, you know, in England, it's natural for people to be any religion, any faith, any skin tone, whatever it may be. But obviously, at this time, you mentioned you were playing football, seeing a therapist, but also doing content as well. So, how did you
Mm-hmm.
manage to balance all of this? Because again, sometimes I get a bit too ahead of myself. Everyone does, where they're so focused on producing the content, playing football, doing everything apart from having the time to relax, breathe, take some space, and relieve the negative energy out of the body. How did you balance all those things? Because obviously, coming home to that sort of abuse, well, it is abuse, getting every single day from people so authoritative. How did you go home and manage all your time? And also, by the way, with being well known online, you're always going to get hate on social media, and then you've unlocked your phone and you see comments on social media.
So when it comes to like the whole like going home and unwinding, social media kind of was that for me. So one of the ways football for me was always a way to unwind, right? But when it becomes a profession, you kind of don't have that luxury anymore. It becomes something that can be stressful a lot of the time, especially with all the things that, like, for example, I went through. It can become something really stressful. And I would come home stressed a lot. Social media, like, posting on TikTok, posting on YouTube, especially because I love YouTube content. That was a way for me to almost unwind. It was something to get my mind off of what had just happened. You know, Not only that, but it was also a way of keeping me accountable during the off season. It still is, because I post football content. I don't post like comedy or, whatever it may be, right? So I post football content. One of the ways I post football content is I post training content. So if I don't feel like training on a specific day, but I need to get a YouTube video out, that's the perfect excuse for me to go out and train and give it my all so that I don't look bad in my own YouTube video. Right? So, like, in a way, I'm kind of keeping myself accountable, right? So in if you can manage to, like, get everything kind of geared towards one specific goal, everything can become very useful. And then it's things I enjoy. I ended up enjoying editing. I ended up enjoying, like, making, TikTok trends or whatever, stuff like that, documenting my own journey, you know, in on TikTok, on YouTube. That stuff really helped me. And talking to a camera actually helped me almost kind of digest things a little bit better, because at least I was talking about it, right? So it helped me digest those moments in a healthier way. And in terms of the hate online, it's still something I navigate, because sometimes it's like, most of the time it's like, oh, put the fries in the bag, bro, something like that, and and for me, like, I don't care. I find it funny. I'll try to, like, find a funny way to respond or something. But sometimes it's like, whoa, that hit a little bit way too close to home. So, like, sometimes I just kind of like, okay, time to turn the phone off, like, ignore that comment. A lot of times, hate online is more of a reflection of who they are rather than a reflection of who you are. And I see that in myself as well. Like, for example, if I criticize somebody, I end up realizing that it's something that I would criticize in myself, right? So, like, I'm not, in a way, I'm almost not criticizing that person, but I'm criticizing what I see in them I also see in myself. It's a little strange, but so I try not to take the hate online too seriously, but it's tough sometimes.
It is tough, and I know a lot of people would probably take it a bit too close to home, as you mentioned there. However, I've had
Hmm.
a few comments before, but you look at the profile pictures and they've got a SpongeBob SquarePants photo profile picture. So,
Yeah, exactly.
like, at the end of the
Exactly. Or
day,
there's just no profile picture at all, or
exactly.
they'll just have like a trolley name. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, what are they here for? They're not here to take something positive out of your content. They're here to take the mick out of you.
Which is just
You know.
weird. It's weird,
See, I
isn't
know my British slang. I know my British slang. I know my British slang, man. I
Good
could
to hear.
survive in England, bro. I would thrive in England.
Good to hear. So I think that sums up for an Ense then. You
Hmm.
all trying to make content. The team started pretty well, if I remember rightly. Is that correct? And then it sort of went a bit
Yeah,
downhill.
so we were first. So for like two rounds or so, we were in the top two, and then we fell to top four. We needed to be top four to qualify for the playoffs in order to get promoted. For like for like 5 or 6 rounds, we were in the top four, and we were doing so well, but the ball wasn't going in. That was the problem. Was that we weren't scoring, but we were dominating possession. We would play rings around teams. Genuinely, we play rings around teams. It was almost weird, because if you looked at the league in general, because we were the new team on the block, like, historically we've been, a pretty good team, but that club had stopped playing. That club had ceased operations. And then 2023 was the first year it came back, right? We didn't have the best of facilities to train. We didn't have the best of gyms. We didn't have the best resources, and we definitely had the least money. But we had talent. That's something we had. We were oozing talent, I think we could have genuinely we could have put most whichever players out on the pitch and we would have gotten a decent result. Like most of the players out of the 28-man squad or whatever. Problem is the ball wasn't going in the net. That was our main issue. But we would outplay teams like crazy. And so we were in the top 4 for majority of the season, and then a few really crucial losses put us all the way at the bottom. Yeah.
Well, so moving on, in this whole mist of things, so you obviously the contract with Fernandez expired. In the end, so obviously you did mention, I just want to touch this really briefly because we are slowly but surely running out of time, as everyone always does. So when you were at Fernandez then, did you get paid in the end? I mean, how did that all come to an end?
No. Wow. No. Contract just ended. I kind of just tried to resolve things amicably many times. I gave them a lot of opportunities to like resolve things, because I didn't want to I didn't want to like leave on a bad note. So I went to Jefferson many times, the vice president, and I told him, hey, we have these issues. Let's resolve them. Let's resolve them in an amicable way. Like, I don't want to, cause drama in the media or anything like that. I just want to get this resolved and move on like professionals and like friends. We can still be friends. We can still, like be, like no one has to get harmed, so to speak, right, in this sort of an interaction. So I gave them a lot of chances and they just didn't take them. So yeah, I basically lawyered up in the end. I basically lawyered up. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Well, so with Qabila then, I mean, I said to you before we started about what we'll talk about, and you were, I know that this is going to come up. Any particular reason as to why?
Well, first of all, because Qabila FC right now, they have a lot of hype behind them. There was a lot of hype behind my videos with Qabila FC, especially on TikTok. I don't know how many videos go viral from the Qabila series, and I was the favorite. I was the guy that everybody thought was gonna be Qabila's first professional signing. Everybody thought that on social media. Even Sohail, man. Even Sohail himself. Because I'm going to do a little bit of a reveal all here on the Jamie.Mccreedy podcast because you're my brother. You're a bro of mine. We're coming up in this industry together. So I'm going to give you like the exclusives. You know what I mean? So I know Sohail personally. I've known him since he was a very small YouTuber. Right? He would always comment on my stuff. He even came to California one time. We've known each other for quite a while. Our mutual connection was Matt Sheldon of Become Elite. We both knew him personally. And as he started, coming up on social media and stuff like that, I would support him, however I could, commenting on his posts, sharing, stuff like that. And we were always friendly. We had a good rapport and stuff like that. And, throughout his ups and downs, I provided him like emotional support. We would talk about things and, also when he succeeded, in Dubai, when he signed for Gulf United. And then he created Qabila, and he actually was like, hey, man, I'm going to start this Road to Qabila series. You should take part. I think you would do really well. And I think you would like really build your social media presence. And like, who knows, maybe you could get a trial with us. And I was like, all right, I'm game. I'm going to do this. And I was already actually doing it before he even announced it. But, so I was posting these videos and I was getting so much support. And then Sohail was reposting all my videos. All of the goals that I scored in Latvia. He made a video like saying, should we sign this guy? And I got thousands of comments that said, yes, you need to sign him now. Right? And I was documenting the journey, everything about the journey, the ups, the downs, the ins, the outs. That I don't, on my channel and on my TikTok, I don't sugarcoat things. I show people exactly what it is, because that's what people need to know, what the industry really is like, because we have this convoluted image of a footballer like immediately becoming a millionaire, or immediately, signing for Real Madrid or whatever, because that's what, that's what's like, sexy to the media. But that's not the truth for most footballers. So I want to show the truth about the football world. So that's what I did. I documented everything as I believed it should be documented. And it got to the point where we were 1 week out from Al Qabila's preseason. I got an invite to go from Sohail himself. Hey man, come to preseason. You'd get a fair shot. You'd be training with the first team. All that kind of stuff. And what I did was I basically posted that. I didn't dox anybody, right? I didn't dox anyone. And Al Qabila's CFO also messaged me. And he messaged me like just trying to get the trial and the flights and stuff organized. And so I was like, I posted on a video like, hey, the CFO of Al Qabila just messaged me. So Helvar just messaged me. I think this is gonna finally happen. Blah blah blah. Let me know if I should go to Al Qabila. That was kind of what I put on my social media. A day later, I get a message from Sohail, and he's like, hey man, like the team just saw your recent video and didn't like it. So yeah, don't come to preseason. All the best in your life. And that was it. And I was so heartbroken. I was so heartbroken. I worked so hard for the opportunity. I had gotten so many people supporting me. And like the only thing that I did was post the social team told me to post. Post your journey, right? Post your journey. So I posted my journey. Am I gonna hide the fact that Sohail messaged me telling me that to come to preseason? No, that's part of the journey. So that's exactly what I did, and that ended up biting me. And I apologized. I posted an apology video like to Sohail and stuff like that, and he acknowledged it. And he was like, "Hey man, this isn't really my decision at this point. It's the higher ups. So yeah, there's nothing we can do at this point." So yeah, that opportunity got lost. Despite all the hype, despite all of the thousands of people who like to this day think I should have played for Al Qabila, they still comment on Suhail's stuff like not signing Hamid was your biggest mistake. They still comment that. I have like screenshots of it. It ended up being I think it ended up being a blessing in disguise, because I had a friend who went to Al Qabila's trials. He went to their preseason. He got invited. He got kicked out after one day. Yeah, he got kicked out after 1 or 2 days. I'm not gonna mention names because obviously to like keep the person's privacy, but he got kicked out after 1 or 2 days of preseason. He barely got to show himself for 45 minutes on the pitch, and they just kicked him out. And what he was telling me was that he thought that he kind of didn't really have a chance from the get-go, because they were kind of looking more at the influencers side of things, and he wasn't an influencer. He was just a really good footballer that got scouted from one of their events. And yeah, they didn't really sort out he sorted out all of his own flights, all of his own hotels. I don't know how many thousands he spent, even though the whole Road to Al Qabila thing was like, we'll sort it all out for you. That was kind of how they marketed it. But the truth is that they haven't done the Road to Al Qabila yet. Like we all posted about it, but the truth is that they actually postponed it. Because I don't know if logistically they weren't ready, whatever the reason was, but they actually haven't taken anybody from the Road to Al Qabila series to go into their trials. They haven't taken anyone. There was me, Akil, Jerry Moses, who actually was in Serbia, and there was a huge issue with him a couple weeks back where he was like in a lot of danger because but he was one of the favorites as well to go to Al Qabila. None of us got contacted, to my knowledge.
With Al Qabila, I do remember seeing it from near enough the get go. I do remember seeing it from a few days in. I always thought as if it would gain hype. I think it was one of those things where it would. In it's the UAE that they play in, right? How many
Yeah.
divisions are they off the top? Because I would think there's not too many divisions, right?
So there's the UAE third division, UAE second division, UAE first division, and then the one that like Al Ain and all those
Okay.
like the top clubs play. So there's four divisions. Um, Apparently they're all professional. I don't know, honestly. I don't know what the conditions are in the UAE. I would assume so because the UAE is like, dripping with money and talent and, opportunity. So I would assume that even fourth division wouldn't be bad, right? And like from knowing some things behind the scenes with Al Qabila, like it is a very expensive operation, as any professional football club is. So I'm sure that they've got quite a lot of support behind the scenes, monetarily. Um, they're not doing too bad in the league. I think they're in like third or fourth place in the league. Yeah, they recruited some like youth Premier League footballers and stuff like that because of their coach. Or I don't know if it's because of the coach, but yeah, they have what's his name, Steven Taylor,
Yeah.
I believe, the ex Newcastle United player, as their coach. So I mean, they seem to have a really good thing going for them, and I'm always rooting for Sohail, despite everything. I still consider him a friend. I still have a lot of love for him. I've seen him come up from nothing. I was there when he was still, where he hadn't even gone to like Spain at that point. He hadn't gone to like Austria. Like I was there for those moments, and so I've got a lot of love for him, despite everything that happened. I'm always wishing him the best, and who knows, maybe that will reopen one day, but I will tread very carefully before I would ever make a decision like that again.
Definitely. Maybe without Qabila, maybe that is a blessing in disguise in itself, where they needed a bit of time to establish themselves, and who knows, there could be an opportunity for you to come
Exactly.
back in the future. Just to sum up
Exactly.
Al Qabila, two things. So, firstly, what actually caught your eye about the club? I know it's a good opportunity. I know it's in the UAE. Who wouldn't want to play football in that lovely country? But also, was there anything behind the scenes where you thought, although the club wasn't properly made yet, they had potential to do this or this or this?
So there was two things. Um, yeah, there were two things. First thing was that I knew Sohail. I know his work ethic. I know what he can do when he sets his mind to something. So I knew that it was a very good project potentially. And like I kind of knew, like I didn't know for sure, but I kind of had a hunch that he had someone like in the royal family behind him. And he ended up revealing later that that I forgot his name, but one of the royal family is he's the president of Al Qabila now, right? So I kind of had a feeling that that was going to happen at one point because of all of the hype that he was bringing to the UAE. The royal family was going to get behind it because they want that positive media attention as well. The second thing was, I'm not going to lie, my faith. Being a Muslim, to make what we call like a hijrah, which is like a migration to a Muslim country, would have been something that was really rewarding for me, to continue to play, to continue to do what I love, but also to be in a Muslim country where, after everything that happened with Ferenc, to go to a Muslim country and feel like I was welcome, to feel like I could practice my religion the way I wanted to, where I could, be around other Muslims and, I could just, be in an environment where I felt overall safer. That was a huge thing for me. And the fact that it didn't happen really, really, you know, it really affected me. It really hurt me because that was something I was like, oh, this is a perfect fit because I'm Muslim and I could totally, do that. I don't know if they recruited any Muslims in the end, like they seem to, they only have one Emirati player, I believe. They only have one player that's actually from the Emirates. So yeah, so for me, I was like, okay, this is a good opportunity for me to do something good for my faith too, and then that got taken away from me as well. So thanks, Sheikh.
Let's talk about the last club that you've played for. We haven't got too long left, and I do want to talk about a few more bits and pieces. So,
Yeah, no
Abad-
worries.
Abadense ES in Brazil. They were
Yep.
playing in the. I'm always very bad with names. In the Sergipe
No
A2
worries.
Championship in Brazil.
Yeah, Sergipe. Yeah. So Sergipe is like right above Bahia.
Okay.
Like it's a state right above Bahia. So that's why I did it basically, and I did it because my agents. So I'm under new
I was going to
representation
mention
now.
that. Yeah, yeah.
I'm part of Carrasco Agency, which is Victor Carrasco and Christian Carrasco, two brothers. Excellent agents, FIFA license, top notch, top quality. You know, I love them. I love those guys. Um, Basically, they told me it would be a good idea for you to close out the year with a club, right? So I was like, okay, I have this offer on the table from a club because I have a lot of ex teammates from Fluminense that are going there and stuff like that. It wasn't the best of conditions, like it wasn't the best of offers, but for the sake of finishing out the year with a team, I did it. You know, I had a lot of doubts and apprehensions based on what had happened at Feirense, but the owner of the club actually did get my transfer done, my ITC. He got it done, no problem. He got it done within like maybe 2 days, you know, so he knew what he was doing. I got paid what I was owed in the end. So spoiler alert, like that was all fine and well in the end. And they took care of everything. They really did. They took care of absolutely everything, not just for me, but for everybody else in the club as well. Like, you know, fortunately, you know, the owner of the team was a pastor, like a Christian pastor. He's pretty rich. I don't know what he like did on the side of aside from being a pastor. But you know, because of like his values as a pastor, he was a very honest person, and that's something that I do, you know, have to tip my hat to because he was an honest person. He would make a promise, he would live up to that promise. You know, we would sign something, he would live up to that contract. You know, all of that was totally good. So yeah, positives for sure.
Was there match fixing involved? Because I remember watching some of your videos. I was going through the channel earlier that you have. Was there match
hmm
fixing from teammates? Wasn't there two teammates that tried to match fix? You were getting comments as if to say it's ruining the fun for everyone else, sort of thing. Why would you want to match fix a game?
So I ended up finding this out from the very president that I was telling you about, the very owner of the club. We were having our suspicions because we would have these guys in training that were so good in training. And then come game time, they would cower. But it wasn't normal. It wasn't normal as if like, oh, he's got like, you know, jitters or, you know, he's nervous. It was like kind of like that was weird. You know, like why would he make that pass there? That makes no sense kind of a deal. And we ended up finding out through the president who told us, and not only, but he actually like called up a meeting before one training session, and he called those two players out in front of everybody. And basically, what happened was there were two derby games, right? And we lost, I think, 4-0 in the first derby game, and we lost. Basically, what happened was with the goals, there was like a pass back, and they took the ball and scored. And then our center back let the ball through his legs twice on a cross on the floor. And then he got a red card with like a really unnecessary tackle in the box. So it was just like, it wasn't like they were so much better than us. We actually kind of played better than them. But because of those very specific mistakes, we lost the game by a lot. And turns out that somebody in the city he was actually a police officer and he deals with match fixing. He had approached that center back and our center defensive midfielder and was like, we want this to happen in the match. If this happens, like if you get a red card in this match and if they score more than 3 goals, we get this amount in the like betting site, we'll give you a percentage. And so that's what happened. Allegedly. I have to say allegedly because we're not 100% sure that happened. Like we're 90% sure. But basically what happened was the police approached the club and took the president's phone, took those two players' phones to like go through messages and stuff to see exactly what had happened. I'm not sure what came out of that, to be honest, but after that, I was like, no, I can't be a part of this. This is making me look bad by proxy because, like, despite the fact that no one really knew about it, we had our suspicions, and like that 4-0 loss is not just for them; it's for me too. I was a part of that team, and like not only that, but there were a lot of suspicious things that would go on, like a goalkeeper playing as an outfield player, for example. Like, who does that? Who does that? That was definitely suspicious. I can't say whether that was match fixing or not, but that was definitely something very suspicious as well that happened in the club. So, yeah, a lot of weird things happen in Brazil, especially in these smaller states.
Well, I was about to say, and also, so with this club as well, you obviously failed to get into the playoff position. Was there something about
Yes.
the president choosing the team? Is that correct?
Yeah, so what happened was this president, he was a character. I'll say that. He was a character. We had a coach, head coach. Head coach got fired. Before I even got there, head coach got fired. Because I got there maybe like 2 games into the season. Because we were still working out the transfer and all of that. So he gets fired. The assistant coach steps up to become the head coach. And with that, we all thought that everything was going to be good. He was a really good coach. He was an excellent coach, by the way. I really loved his football philosophy. He really knew what he was doing. However, it was pretty obvious that he didn't make he didn't call the shots with his starting 11, especially when he came up to me. I think it was my second game there. It was my second game there. I had maybe like 2 or 3 training sessions at that point. And I had been really good in training. I had been killing it in training to the point where players were trying to injure me. That's how good I was. Like, I was doing like sombrero flicks and elasticos and all this kind of stuff. I was really, really confident. I hadn't felt that confident in years. And coach comes up to me and he goes, "You need to be our starting striker. I'll talk to the president to see if he will play you as the starting striker." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he went, "Yeah, he's the one that chooses the team, not me, because I'm just the assistant coach." And I was like, "But you're the head coach now." And he goes, "Yeah, but trust me, it's better to talk to the president." And lo and behold, like the president was the one that called the shots. He was the one I noticed, like, for example, if I would be on the bench during a game, and let's say, it would be in the second half, he would call the assistant coach over to him in the stands and would be like, put this specific player in for that specific player. And then the coach would go, "Okay, cool." And he would do it. So like, that didn't sit well with me either, because the coach should be the one that makes the decision. If the coach doesn't think that I'm good enough and keeps me on the bench, fair enough. That's my job to prove the coach wrong, right? It's in training. I have to prove him wrong in training and with the time that I get in games. However, if it's the owner of a club that's calling the shots in terms of who's playing, and that guy isn't even going to training, he's not even showing up to see like how training is going, that doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah, that would definitely be a criticism that I would have to mention on that. Purely because, as you mentioned, no president should be picking the team. And if you want to have a structure of a football club, the president definitely shouldn't be picking the squads and things like that.
Yeah,
So
there
now we've
was no
spoken.
structure. Yeah,
Well, yeah,
there was no
well,
structure. There was no structure.
exactly. And you've spent a lot of time in Brazil. Currently, you are in California, in America. And I know over
Mm-hmm.
the last few months and weeks, you've been working behind the scenes training and things like that. I'm guessing you're still
Yes.
training, right?
Yeah, so I'm currently a little bit injured. I'm injured in my left hip, but thankfully I'm now back to like running. I can
Okay.
run. I can do like 80%, 90%. Um, still not perfectly right enough to like do a lot of like sessions with the ball, unfortunately. However, yeah, things are looking up. I'm going to the gym a ton. And yeah, I mean, my plan at the moment is, well, my agent's plans are, to have me come to the US to play.
Okay. It's not bad. I'm
Yeah.
coming to the USA in 2026. So you got to be there.
There we go. Yeah, let's go. Awesome. World Cup.
Yes,
We're going to be there. Hopefully, I'll be playing for
exactly.
one of the national teams.
Yes, for Brazil, Iran, or America, you never ever
There we
know.
go. You never know.
So in America right now, what kind of
Hmm.
occupies your time? I know you're training and things like that. When was the last time you sort of played an 11-a-side match?
For Amadense was the last time.
Okay.
Um, once I get into like once I get my hip all healed up, I'm gonna be doing that. I'm gonna be like playing some like I want to join some like pickup groups where there's a lot of like pros that are on off season, so like I want to be training with them. I also want to be doing, I might maybe do some like combines, like OPSM combine or something like that, just to see like where I'm at compared to these guys. And they have a lot of 11v11 stuff too. So that's kind of what I want to do. And then maybe I'll do some like friendlies in the UPSL or something like that. But I'm a little bit apprehensive about that because of like the risk of getting injured and stuff. I don't really, it's not worth getting injured if I'm going to play a friendly for a UPSL team. If I'm going to have opportunities, with the MLS Next Pro, USL Championship, USL One, like it's not worth it. But I'll have to weigh the risks essentially.
That's definitely a criticism of the UK. I know that you just mentioned there to go and play with some pros to get all these opportunities. Go just pick up the boots, go and play. Is that something pretty common in America? Like, is that because of people that you know personally, or is it a commonly known thing? Okay, come to the park at this time. It's a local thing in California neighborhood, or how do you get involved with those sorts of pro places?
So I mean, pickup is always happening in California, always. But that's typically like amateur, just people that want to just play, right? I have, for example, a group here at the local park. We play every day at 3, and it's just whoever shows up. If you're a college player, you're a college player. If you're a club player, you're a club player. If you're a random guy that works as a nurse from 9 to 5 and you just want like a way to wind down, you're welcome to play. There's pickup groups everywhere. With the pro pickup groups, it's a little bit different. You have to know somebody. You have to have a reputation. You have to, it's like almost like a screening process, right? And yeah, you kind of have to like earn your way into those. I've earned my way in for the most part. It's just a question of, which groups are around when. And like most of them are in like Orange County, for example. That's a hell of a drive. So, but it might be worth it. You just gotta see, again, assess the risks, and like in 2019, I was part of Matt Sheldon's pickup group, like with the Become Elite. I was part of his videos and stuff like that, and that was really cool because I got to play with a whole bunch of pros from a whole bunch of different places. And yeah, I mean that's basically it. It's just as long as I'm getting touches on the ball, as long as I'm being able to work on the things that I want to work on, I'm not too particular.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a fair way to look at things. So,
Yeah.
obviously, the last time we spoke, it was in October of 2023 on an interview like this. So it's been
Yes.
over a year. And in that year, obviously, the show's developed and things like that. So, there's kind of a thing that we do on the channel, which is make you a FIFA card or EAFC card. So,
Okay, let's
yes.
go.
Okay. So, obviously, this is compared to just how you'd be on FIFA so if you got given a card. So, let's start off with your pace. What would your pace be on the game?
I think my pace would be an 86.
86. So that's definitely one of the higher things on your card, right?
Potentially.
Potentially, all depending on the next one, we would be shooting
92.
92. So that's probably something that you definitely pride yourself on being a striker.
Oh, dude,
Passing,
yeah. I'm a goal scorer for sure. Passing?
absolutely, yeah, passing.
Hmm. I'll be harsh with myself and I'll say 78.
Okay, You know, I think you're the first player, because a lot of the players come on to do 75, 85, 80. They do the zeros and the fives. You're doing a 92, 78, 86. Dribbling, what would that be?
That would be an 88.
88. I suppose with playing in Brazil, playing in the street football, which is always something
Especially now, yeah. After the past 2 years that I've had in Brazil, I can't honestly. I didn't even like improve my dribbling in training, honestly, because in training it's always 1-2 touch. You know where I really improved my dribbling over the course of not just like now, but the course of like all the years that I've been visiting in Brazil and stuff. It's just been on the dirt pitches and in the streets. You play street football, you're not passing the ball. You kidding me? You want to humiliate the guy in front of you. You want to nutmeg him twice, and so that was what we would have a lot of these like pickup games and stuff. Like at my condo, we had a little dirt pitch there. You'd see it in most of my YouTube videos, and that was where everybody would go and play, and I would just be creative. That was where I was like, okay, this is no longer a job. I'm now just having fun, and I'm a kid. I'm a kid again. So let's try things like a kid would try things in football. So I would do crazy flicks. I would do this and that and the other. And it becomes instinct to a point. And like now I go and, I would be in a session. Like, for example, at Amadense, I would go and I'd be like, whoa, where did that come from? That was weird. I've never done that in a training session before. That was cool. Right. And it becomes a part of your game the more you do it, like in the streets. That's kind of why, like, I do the pickup games here in LA, because it's a similar vibe, like a street culture kind of a thing. We have a similar thing here in California, which is why all the best players in the US come out of California.
Yeah, defending your time as a left back, did that ever improve?
Oh yeah, it improved a lot, but I still don't take too much pride in it. I'll give myself like a 52.
52. And
Yeah.
last but not least, physicality.
That includes like heading and stuff, right?
All of it, I suppose, yeah. And you're in the gym right now, so that must go up a tiny bit.
Yeah. I'll give myself like 68.
68. Okay. That's a
Yeah,
very
just
good piece as well.
because. Yeah, I'd give myself a 68 for that, just because like, I'm not like the most physical player. I'm more speedy and intelligent. So for me, it's more about like, okay, I need to create a separation between me and the defender. I don't really. If he gets contact with me, fine, but I would rather avoid the contact, because then he'll never catch me.
Okay.
I'm too quick and I'm too agile, so like he just won't catch me. But I'm giving him a half a chance if I'm being physical with him, basically.
Well, wow. It's been, I think, just over an hour talking to you about your whole career, obviously powered by VIP Framing. So I just wanted to thank them for, of course, sponsoring this show, and obviously the future shows yet to come. We spoke twice now. We spoke twice.
Yes, we
and
have.
Obviously, it's been brilliant. And we've obviously kept in contact behind the scenes as well. So I just wanted to wish you all the best with your future journey. Maybe in America, could be in Europe, could be anywhere in the world. But I'm sure something good's going to happen eventually, as already has in the past.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. I love this show. I love the people you bring on as well. I'm always following the show, as you know. And yeah, we stay behind the scenes. You've done a lot of like really good charity work as well. So I would love to be a part of that in the future. Yeah, now that I'm back here in California, like, I can donate a pair of boots, donate like a jersey, sign a jersey, whatever you'd like, man. I'm more than happy to be a part of it. And you better send me this. You better send me these clips, because I'm putting these clips on my channel too.
Okay. Well, I'll definitely do that. Don't you worry. And actually, speaking of the charity work, I've got some stuff coming up in the next few weeks. That'll be a really good opportunity to definitely get some things sent over here to send back.
Yeah, 100%. Let's get it done, man.
Absolutely.
I'm more than happy.
Hamid, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate you, man.